Hi, everybody. My name is Rosalie, aka Crypto Queen. I'm joined here with Guillaume, CEO of Panoptic, this morning for our live stream, and we have two very special guests today from the Pokpok team. Please introduce yourselves. Tell me a little bit about yourself, and yeah, happy to have you here.
Hey guys, so this is Nibble, founder and co-founder and CEO of Pokpok. And Pokpok is really a gamified options protocol. We've gamified the whole options opening process from start to finish, and we have made it made it fun and friendly for really newcomers to enter the space and start trading their first option. And as for myself, I came from a background in TradFi. So I spent 8 years, first at JP Morgan and then at Citi Global Markets, doing option sales and trading. And then I spent 3 years in a blockchain gaming firm. And you can kind of see where those two experiences intersect, and you kind of get like a hybrid platform known as Pokpok. And yeah, over to Shane.
Hi guys, I'm Shane or Joshua, and my background in Web3 actually is more from a marketing standpoint. I'm the CMO and co-founder of Pokpok, and Nick and I met around a year and a half ago. And I'll be honest with you, when I first joined Pokpok, I knew nothing about options. And one of the reasons why I came onto the team was because the concept was so obscure to me. I come from a background of working in DeFi and GameFi as well. In the last bull run, I launched quite a major project with a couple of friends called Unix Gaming. And then since then went on to work with likes of Animoca brands, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But all the projects I'd worked with had been like within this format. It was like, guilds or not memes, but mostly just kind of very generic projects that were copying each other. And when I met Nick and he was talking about gamified options, it was just so obscure that I couldn't completely wrap my head around it, that I would just blindly trusted him, and he kind of led me on this journey, which has been a roller coaster, but it's, we've been able to see a lot of great traction and success so far. So that's my introduction.
And perfect, yeah. And I'm maybe jumping in. Yeah, I'm Guillaume, the founder of Panoptic. I really like the feel of Pokpok. This was a new way of approaching options that I've never kind of thought about. And maybe it's what I can share my screen and we can go over some of the things. But what people want to see, it's looking exactly like a game, which is what you would expect from, again, folks that have your background, but the underlying process is still trading options, which is very, very cool. So let me see the when you land, actually it looks like I don't know about Farmville or maybe Stardew Valley, but it's very, very fun looking. It's basically like a I don't know, 8-bit 16-bit video game. We can go over a few things, but again, it's all maybe a few questions about why you approach this, but it's all an options at the background, but it's a chicken based trading. So I just want to say, as you click through, it may not appear like it, but you can choose. And then the one thing I want to kind of call upon is that it's still an option at the end of the day. So I'm just going to be there. I want to get the payoff there. Yes, it's an option at the end of the day, which is kind of the very cool part. So you kind of reveal it towards the end. So anyways, we can go over a few of the features, and Rosalie also has some questions. But yeah, at least that was the cool thing for me. It looked like a fun video game. You farm, you take care of your chickens, but at the end of the day, it's an option that you're trading, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of wondering, using this gamified experience, do you think that your users are understanding all the more advanced strategies, the Greeks, and kind of all the complex things that come? Or do you feel like your users are just happy to kind of play this game, and maybe options are a part of it, but it's not as exciting?
Yeah, that's a good question. We've debated quite a bit on how far down the rabbit hole we want to go when we're educating users about options, right? And I think, oh, that's the music, yeah. And I think one of the things we went with is we try to make it as simple as possible. So if you look at the platform, it's like you can only long, and so that firstly like removes the risk of collateral, because we also aware back in the day when option strategy vault just came out. and vaults were offering pretty good yield on selling strategies. But what happened was a lot of people got burned, and that left the option space with a very bad reputation. And so now, since we're trying to revive it, we try to go with as least risk as possible. So it's long only, and you can't even unwind it, right? So you kind of having not needing to manage the MTM of it, it kind of takes away, all the like the theta decay and all of those like things. We may look to incorporate them as we mature as a platform, but I think at a very basic level we want to keep it because these are people that are just dipping their toes into options, and so it should be as like simple as possible. Yeah.
And maybe to add, so I tried to bring this up, but the sin of the original options vault is that it was only going up positive delta. So of course, if the direction of the market is wrong, then you get burned. But yes, at least you also are allowing both directionality to be expressed, not just up, which is this covered call vault, but also up and down. And that's ultimately like no strategy is winning all the time. But if you have a choice between up and down, then of course the onus falls on you if you lose a little bit more because you're the one that treated badly, type of thing.
Yeah. So is the conventional sell put strategy that lots of private bank clients can actually get burned by in TradFi. So yeah.
And so you do, and also you do regular options, but you also have a spread option versus just naked one. So can you tell us a bit more about the spread one? What does it mean, and how does that compare to the more vanilla one that people may be used to?
Yeah. So actually, none of them are like straight out vanilla. And something that I learned from the space is actually options are already so niche that you don't have to make the products too fancy. And I kind of like back in the day was looking at Atlantic options from Dopex. And then I was breaking it down, and I was like, hey, actually, it's not that complicated, but you could market the hell out of it, by giving it a cool name. And so we actually started out with pay-as-you-go options. So every single option that we try to launch on our platform always has the user in mind first. So how can we de-risk the user as much as possible? And so the first option that we launched is pay-as-you-go option. And that's kind of like, you got a price vol on vol, it's a little bit more expensive, but it essentially allows the user to default if the market turns. So if you open a call at like ETH 2.3, and now ETH is like 1.9, you actually, since you only pay a down payment, you can stop paying. Mm-hmm. And that's fine because we run like all the simulations behind it. And then we think of that's good for directional. So we saw like when during times of severe corrections, like when Iran first attacked Israel, we saw like the markets really dipped, and then we saw a lot of people buying calls. That's very good for directional bets. And then as the markets evolved, we're trading in for a while we were trading a pretty flat market. Then we were thinking, okay, how can we make it cheaper for users to still make money in such a flat environment, right? But still be able to express their views in the market. So that's kind of like why we did spreads. And then we also like abstracted away all the complexity. So it's only at the money. And we always compare ourselves to Deribit, right? Where you might have like, couple hundred numbers flashing on your screen with the bid, the mid, the ask. You have the, the TED, the expiries, you have the assets, it's like really intimidating. So we only do at the money. We only do 3 days, 7 days.
Who's the market maker? Without naming, but what entity is doing the underwriting, I guess?
Yeah, so we're working with a structurer. They're ex-exotic guys from JP. So we were kind of working.
How did they respond to the pay-as-you-go model? Because this is indeed, I like this model too. It's similar to what we do in Panoptic, but yeah, were they able to price this correctly, or what were their gut reactions to that model?
They were. I mean, firstly, the sizes are really, really small, so they don't do like they may or may not do live delta hedging. So they kind of do aggregate hedging. But so it's priced. So there was a lot of like lobbying and pushback at the start because It's a new platform. You want to kind of launch with a funky model, and it requires a lot of you kind of need to do up the engine for that, right? But we finally pushed it through. It's a Hong Kong-based structuring firm. They kind of started out in 2017. So they've been around for quite a bit. It's just all context from like back in the banking days. Yeah.
And again, yeah, every instrument you can price to some extent. It's just understanding all the details,
Yeah.
which is kind of very cool.
Yeah, I think now that I'm trading more on Panoptic and I've gotten really familiar with our platform specifically, I think one of my favorite things is that we can do strangles and straddles and play with volatility. So I think that's a huge difference between our platforms. And I wonder, are you planning to kind of incorporate these strategies as well? I feel like it's much like more profitable in markets that shift so quickly, to just kind of play with volatility instead of price, right? Price goes up, price goes down.
Yep.
You're probably going to lose.
Yeah. Actually, we are looking for more partners to onboard, and we're happy to kind of. I think the ideal is we want to be a I wouldn't say proper, but a more full-fledged, because we are really still at the beginning of our journey, and so slowly we'll onboard more and more products. And yeah, I mean, like Guillaume and Rosalie would love to hear about what you guys are doing over at Panoptic. Perpetual options, like how do they work?
Yeah, exactly. And I was going to bring it up, but yes, it seems like you have some room for expansion, or maybe you have to unlock them. But what also is very interesting for me in terms of options, that there is maybe too much diversity. There's so many strategies you can create. Yes, puts and calls, but then you can combine them in very, very novel and even exotic ways. And your spread option is one example of this, that you have two options into a single trade. A lot of folks may not be familiar with this, but yes, the fact that we can preload some strategy or have the users maybe express some type of directionality without being exactly sure how to implement them is kind of also what we see as being a big plus. So I'm going to share our tab a little bit, but then the one thing that I want to highlight as well is that we have the recent trades. A lot of folks are still buying put and call options, which is what you see. We sort of pay off similar to your interface, but we allow people to create these straddles or multi-legged strategies or some type of spread. And on our side, we also want to make it so that it's a little bit easier to onboard and a little bit easier to create your own strategies.
That's
And
cool.
then you don't start from scratch, but you can preload strategies. So again, a very similar to you to some extent in terms of preloading some strategies. Buying a call or setting a put or doing these spreads is where we can actually allow people to be expressing their views, which could be kind of even neutral. There's a different type of trades you can do.
Okay.
But yeah, at the end of the day, if you buy a call on Panoptic or if you buy a call on Pokpok, it's a very similar system because you can actually choose your strike, or if it's at the same strike as at the money, you pay as you go as well. It's a similar kind of model that I think has to be this way in DeFi. You cannot necessarily use an order book. You cannot price something on chain. It's very difficult. So what we approach, our approaches are similar, is that we maybe offset the complexity and make it as you go. So the market, the state of the option is defined by current market activities. And in our case, the longer you hold your position, the more you pay, and it's really as you go, as you trade. And if you are right directionally, the price can go up very quickly, and you can close and manage. But if you're wrong, it may turn back and forth. But it's a bit fairer in terms of pricing because it is market driven. It is given by the actual trade that is happening. We built on top of Uniswap, but it's a very, very could be hard to manage even. So no one can actually complain that the price wasn't fair because it's thousands of trades that went into that price. So it's actually very, very, very fair.
Wow. How are you? So I love the UI, by the way. Are you able to just drag the strike?
Oh
around?
yeah. We
Oh, that's awesome.
we went into like we're coding like almost pure SVG filing, so it's like it's smooth on my screen. Hopefully, smooth on
Yeah,
everybody's screen.
it is. Yeah.
But and then you can create. I mean, these same approach. You can create a spread, and you can change all the different elements as well. So it is hopefully still somewhat overwhelming, unless I mean at the start. But we try to make it fun. I guess that's why I like the approach of trading a payoff and not trading necessarily all the Greeks is kind of one way to see this.
Yeah, I mean, from someone in back in the TradFi days, I really love what I'm seeing. It's like option gig, right? Like this is amazing. Like really love the UI.
And to
Yeah.
some extent, we you're approaching maybe the newbies, those that haven't never traded but are interested in the exposure to options. They want to be directional. They want to access leverage with no liquidation risk. And we are maybe professional retail. We're still maybe not at the level of big firms like JP Morgan and kind of even the market making firms, but we allow this to be a bit bonified. And then this is also like the way I trade. So I'm actually very, very happy. And then I would recommend anyone to visit different strategies. Again, you can create some pretty fun and kind of interesting trades that you may not be able to do even in TradFi. Actually, there's some weird trades.
That's really cool. Can I ask, like, how are you guys pricing such dynamic payoffs?
Yeah, and the capital exposure is pretty straightforward. You have a put and a call. You can bind them. We allow just the capital or the notional to be straightforward, but the IV, the pricing, how much you pay for that option or get paid, is where we, again, similar to a pay as you go, but this is the innovation of Panoptic, is that we do it in a way that is every position that you create is liquidity in Uniswap. So every trade that happens, if you sell an option, you get paid the fees generated by Uniswap. And if you do this over time, and maybe I don't want to dox my portfolio, let's look at one option. You can see that every trade that happens is going to accumulate premium. So that,
Right.
as I said, it's fair because everyone that's trading is ultimately contributing to this. And we can see that if you're in range, you collect fees. If you're
Okay.
out of range, which is what this position is, and this users as well, meaning that you don't get paid anything for that option. It's deep out of the money. You have the one delta option, you get paid zero fee. So it is a little bit more decentralized in terms of pricing. But as I said, if the price on Uniswap is determined by these swaps, you should be kind of generating the revenues that you expect. So
Okay. So you mean that the building blocks are actually like the calls and the puts are trading as
as
LP?
Uniswap, yes, exactly. And
Oh,
this is also something for those that are using your platform also. They are trading options, they buy them. It may be seem a bit abstract, but at the end of the day, it is a real position. It is a real instrument that you're trading. So I'm sure your structured product firm is managing all the exercise and assignment and kind of counterparty
right.
risk. In our case, we use Uniswap v3 as a decentralized clearinghouse, if you want. But yes,
That's
this
cool. So
liquidity, yes,
so I guess you guys have like MMs to balance out the prices
a little bit.
as all move as well, because
It is.
otherwise retail might not know how to kind of
And
like.
then the key point is that there's a vol surface, and you can have discrepancies between Deribit and Panoptic, and you can even have discrepancies in the IV between two neighboring strikes. And there's maybe a cottage industry of different type of arbitrage you can do. But yes, the key point is that some strikes are heavily traded. We see a lot of calls queue. People are buying calls. You should maybe equilibrate this using puts or at least other calls if you want to. But yes, the whole system is you sell an option, you have to wait, and as long as it's in range, you collect fees. But if it goes out of range, or if someone buys a lot of your options, you get paid more. If no one buys, you get paid the basic. So the experience, I'd say, is also on the more fun and less scary side. We do show that some of the Greeks, but at the end of the day, it is maybe to some extent tapping into Uniswap, taking over the LP side. Any LP in Uniswap over since DeFi summer were option sellers. They can do it on Panoptic as well. So we focus a lot on selling, which is a bit different than you guys because you also focus on buying it more. But it's kind of something that, again, you could imagine that even the execution of your trades could be done on Panoptic to some extent, in a way that's very decentralized.
That's really cool. That's nice. Yeah.
And yeah,
Amazing.
Yeah, I think the approaches are very, very different, but at the end, we're hoping to get more options into DeFi, derivatives in general. I mean, make spot better, make trading better are necessary to grow this industry. So finding different ways to do that is great. I wonder if kind of the future of DeFi options is where these kind of simplified, gamified interfaces are layered on top of more complex ones like ours, and just kind of thinking about different ways to onboard users and what that might look like. And I'm curious to hear last thoughts of how this industry is going to grow.
Yeah, I mean, it's firstly it's really tough to find. First, even in TradFi, like option structurers are a very, very small group, and then if you take that into Web3, is an even smaller group. So I think you can really like name the all the companies that are involved in the option space. So I really do think it makes sense to kind of band together and work together, because we're so early in the space that the pie is really for it's not like we're gonna cannibalize each other, right? Because we're so early that everyone's trying to grow the pie.
again, and then one thing I may add is that options are pretty awesome. And if you think about it, trading perps is quite difficult. There's a lot of risks involved. It's very binary. There's no room for forgiveness. And I would say that anyone that is trading perps should reconsider, like, do you want to get liquidated 25 times a year or use options as a way to do it? And then one thing that I also like is that you have the Great Hall. You can see other people's trade, and maybe that's also another way to on board. You have the ability to, we have, it's all open, but looking at people's trade, either copy trading or getting inspiration is the best way to start, because we've seen it with our users as well. It's hard to know where to start. It's hard to know how to manage positions. The best ways to learn from those that trade for a living and those that know about what they're doing. So again, I like your copy trade as well, but also the fact that it is kind of, you can learn from other people's trading to some extent, and that's also what we believe is a very good way for gaining traction.
Yeah.
That's just touching on something you were saying before about perps. One of the reasons why I got like so sucked into actually using the game.poppok.io platform is because when you're trading perps, you have to pay the funding fees, and sometimes if you're like holding your position open, you can just keep like emptying money into it just to keep your trade alive. But with like the options such as the spread options on Pokpok, obviously ours are kind of like bound by like 3 to 7 days. We're not doing like super long time frames, but it just made so much sense for me when I saw like the market crash to like just ape, like even if it costs like $50 or something like that, I can like reason with that amount of money. As for like maybe like $1,000 or something, I wouldn't feel as comfortable with. So like just paying that one-off fee and then just waiting the 3 days, and at the end of it, you make money or you don't. So that's one of the reasons why I do think a lot of people that are trading with leverage should definitely, experiment with trading options. And one other thing I wanted just to add about your platform, I wanted to ask. I know you were just going on the Pokpok, but do you have any like onboarding materials that, like, for example, someone like me that is kind of like, getting into options and familiarizing myself, as you said, you kind of have a platform for like the pro amateur traders. Like, how do I like get in on the action?
Yeah, thank you. Someone, you may even think this was a planted question, but yes, we are realizing this is a very complex problem. We have to take leadership into how we onboard people. But yes, Rosalie's here as well. I've been teaching her on live stream multiple times a week since 2 months to know how to trade. And this is kind of the one example I said, learning by seeing. And then that we are kind of using this material to create video content. We use this material to refer to type of trades. We had a huge crash over the past few days. How do we respond? It's actually hard not to panic. And then again, I'm trying to teach Rosalie. I'm learning myself a lot myself too, because I've never seen markets like this. But the live streaming, the continuous content production is one way that we feel is going to be very important. And the other one is that we also have maybe Panoptic Academy, something that is a little bit more structured, where you go and say, how do I trade options? How do I put my call? And then have this be also the starting point. Even though, again, I personally have been looking at this payoff and I understand all the risks, but then someone that is maybe not as familiar, you also have to understand what it means. So I would say that the live stream is one thing that is a bit easier to digest, because it's continuous and very much like green in terms of, okay, this is what the market does, how do you respond? And the long term, you don't learn about trading options by reading a textbook. You have to do it. And then you start small amounts, express the directionality, see if it works out or not, reevaluate, and then again, maybe learn a few things on the way.
Can I just ask also, like, what is the minimum spend to open an option on your platform?
So it's on mainnet. So we have one deployment on mainnet, which is maybe gas constrained. So it is cheap in gas nowadays. So it's like $5 ish to trade an option. So you have some limit. We also live on Unichain, and on Unichain, it's pennies, and it's actually fairly liquid as well on the ETH USDC side. So you can trade $5 if you want and pay 5 cents, or $50, or maybe $100 and pay $5 on mainnet. There's no limit, and we can see a lot of folks are smaller side. We can peek and see, but a lot of folks trade somewhat small options. This is fine. They want to be directional and they want to express some views, and in that case, this is one person that purchased a call option, hopes for reversal, I'm sure, a few days ago, and then it doesn't have to be small. This is only like $35. Oh my god, yeah, $35 was notional. But yeah, and again, I think this was great. Thanks, Nick and Josh. In our case, we see this as maybe kind of the bridge between the gamified aspect, where you have a cool and visual experience, and the more advanced aspect, which is still visual but a bit more advanced, is kind of where we can bridge the gap between the options world, which is so large in TradFi, so useful. It's been gate kept from users to some extent, and retail share ourselves. So that's just kind of the goal. Can we make the use of options as seamless and easy and for users than kind of what the advanced users are doing? So
Do you find that, like, your user base is global, or do you have a certain kind of, like, are you more popular in the States or
actually, we're blocking states, so technically no one can. Maybe me not, but yeah, I would say we have to look. Most of it, I think, comes from maybe more US. I don't know. We have to look, actually.
I'd say Europe, yeah.
So Europe, definitely, we have people asking questions on Discord, of course, at European hours. But yeah, I would say that the content also is a bit more kind of English and kind of central. I mean, Europe and US focus. But yeah, I can imagine that US, non-US users, Asian users, mid-markets users are definitely interested in options.
I guess it can be a bit difficult to know sometimes when you're on.
A lot of folks come from
DeFi,
Tanzania,
right?
For some reason. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well understood.
All right, and again, this was great. Sorry for cutting this off. I wanted to give it under 30 minutes, but this was great. Thanks, Nick and Josh. This is again, maybe I'll trade a little bit on your platform too. I like the gamified aspect. This was great. This was fun. So,
No worries.
yeah, I think.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in, and hopefully this is just the beginning, and yeah.
Amazing. All right, bye everyone.